Hey y'all, it's K-Bird Tweets, and this is Peace, Love, and Baseball. Welcome back to this week's episode of Peace, Love, and Baseball. I'm your host, as always, K-Bird Tweets, and this week we are joined by Nick Pollack, who is a baseball writer, a project manager, a director of operations, a pitching enthusiast, which I imagine all culminates as the founder and CEO of the digital media company Pitcher List. Nick, thank you for joining me today to discuss all about your latest ventures. Maybe talk me like over or off of a ledge on my favorite team's current pitching situation. And I'm hoping also to get into some fantasy baseball talk with you as well. Are you as excited as I am to be just a couple weeks away from meaningful baseball?
Oh, it's always the best time of the year. And what is happening? Thank you so much for having me for this. Fun thing. I don't think anyone actually looks at my LinkedIn. I'm assuming you did because you called me director of operations, which is hilarious. Because that is I'm one of the lucky few that have a job running a website for a company. I've been doing it since 2011 remotely, and doing that just kind of as a freelancer has allowed me to do all this stuff with Pitcher List and actually make this my career. But I have kind of like a UBI with that. So yeah, I run their website for them. No one else knows how it works. And I'm the only one that is able to update it. So it's a wild thing, but yeah, no one calls me director of operations.
no one calls you up.
I gave myself that title. I'm pretty sure. I said, yeah, I'm the director of website operations over there because there is no one that does that. I just run the website. So why not?
No, I mean, I know how that is. I have had those job titles at points in time over my life. And I think that's what, I mean, I shared with you before we started recording that I have a background as an actor and a lot of my listeners know that. But these media jobs or any jobs really in sports are jobs in entertainment, and they all kind of align with the way that all creative jobs do, where you kind of have to figure out one way to facilitate another thing, and if it all works out and aligns, you can eventually do more of what you really want to be doing.
Yeah, it's all product management. And if you don't have the skills to organize and plan correctly and actually assess what details matter for success, I mean, obviously certain people just kind of fall into it and they happen to do all the right things, and that's great too, and they just have a natural knack for it, I guess. But you'll notice that a lot of the people who can be successful in any profession that they do, it's about planning and details and organization, and it doesn't really matter what the medium is, it's still there. So if you have a passion in one area, it can apply, a lot of the skills you learn in that one can apply to something else too.
Absolutely. Yeah, and to be able to do it in the way that you are and really be spearheading something, you have to not only have the creativity and the passion for it, but all of those skills as well. So obviously you told us a little bit about your backgrounds there, but what is your background with the game of baseball?
I was a pitcher for a long time. I pitched through college. The thing is, I never liked the culture of baseball. I went through it in high school. I was the freshman on the varsity team kind of thing, and had to deal a lot with that kind of puffing out your chest culture that I just don't like in the slightest. And then dealt with it a lot in college as well as I walked on my sophomore year. And it's interesting. It kind of took me away from the game. I mean, obviously, I wasn't good enough anymore, too. As I pitched by the end of it, I was throwing like on my very best day, like 83 or so, slinging lefty or righty. I wish I was a lefty. But terrible mechanics and everything. And then I left the game, and then I kind of came back as a travel baseball coach for a year. I still do coach a basketball team, just rec here, and through that, coached their travel team, the Brooklyn Bulldogs, and gave pitching lessons. But I just kind of fell into this company that I started in 2014, where I was a giant fantasy baseball nut with my friends, and I decided to make a website to visualize pictures because I love the scouting element of it, to
Okay.
actually visualize a picture instead of
Yeah.
the spreadsheet of numbers that is Fangraphs and Baseball Reference. There are these extra elements that you can really understand just by watching them, saying, oh man, he's really in command, or his fastball is so good, or his slider is so filthy. And you just don't get that always from the numbers. You can't always understand that. So I wanted to show that part of the game, and it got shut down by MLB. It was called Pitcher Gifts back in 2014. And then I enjoyed the writing so much for whatever reason that it became Pitcher List with a top 100 ranking every week. That's the list. And that was 2015. I've just been so fortunate to work with so many great people over the years. And I enjoyed just talking about starting pitching so much that just slowly and steadily, with that other job supporting me and not having to take anything out of Pitcher List for myself, I was able to reinvest everything that we did over the years. And yeah, and here we are now. It's 2024. I cannot believe that this thing is still going in the way that it is. So I've been really, really lucky to have it work as it has.
So do you exclusively focus on starting pitchers?
Yes, that's all I do. And I'm actually very much of a loud supporter of being a specialist. It used to be something with our parents that you had to be a master of all trades because you had the smaller groups, and the massive connections that we have now didn't exist. But now that you can work with people in different countries easily, what's the point of being good at a lot of things and not great at a single thing? There's no point. People would just go just the one person for the single thing, one thing for that thing. So in order to stand out and to try and be the best at something, I decided to just focus on starting pitchers. Also, it's the most fun and intricate, and it's so annoying to do stuff on hitters and relievers. What are they? Who cares? So just to do starting pitchers, it's I don't know, I felt very lucky that I was able to find that specific niche and just run with it.
Tell us a little bit about who your consumers are. Like, who are the people that are most engaged with your content?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think anyone's really, they talk about demographics and stuff, but
Yeah.
it varies. It's funny because what I think we provide is an overarching way to just understand the game, that it can be the most casual fan, because look, we have lists, we have rankings. We understand that sometimes you just want to go in and be like, who is better? Tell me. Great.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. And let's be honest, it's just how we all consume things these days. And I wanted to move away from like the textbook of writing to the more casual, easily digestible writing as well. At the same time, I also wanted to create something where you can, learn yourself effectively. Like, you have all the resources that I do to make all the assessments that I make. And I know that sounds kind of silly to be like, Nick, you're putting yourself out of a job in this way. But I don't know. I think that a lot of our consumers either are that quick in and out, just tell me what to do. Great. We have all the things covered completely. You can just, any questions that you have, awesome. It's there answered. Or we also have the people that really want to do that next level of creating new metrics and exploring what makes everyone tick. And we have these player pages with full Statcast data and everything. That's a lot of fun. And then I would say the core of it all, though, is that we call ourselves the anti-Barstool Sports. As I mentioned, I really hated the culture growing up. And it's really important to me that we deliver this celebration of baseball in a way that is not off-putting to parents for their kids, or just people don't feel like they need to be any different. I'm all about not being negative. Like, these are humans. We shouldn't use sports also as a medium to be worse people. I don't know. I see people yelling at the TV all the time, and they treat their friends poorly because, like, it drives me insane.
Yeah.
And look, I'm a Yankee fan because I wanted to be happy in life. Okay. I was a 5-year-old growing up in Brooklyn. Okay.
Yeah.
I got in at 94. I was so sad that there was a strike. My dad had to explain it to me. I was heartbroken in 95 at age 6 or not age 7. And then, of course, things were good after that. But I root for baseball first, and I will watch a Yankee game and be like, that was so awesome when Chapman allowed that home run to Brasso. That was so cool. And like, I wish the Yankees won, but what a good at bat and what an unbelievable story that was. And that's great. And that's how we should be enjoying this game. We shouldn't allow like the reality. We shouldn't have to create our own reality to deal with this emotion of this team that doesn't care about us. Like, it's fun to root for it and it's great, but just enjoy the positives of it. And we focus so much on the negatives. So
yeah,
that's our core audience.
I could not agree more. And it's funny that you say that, because I related to you right off the bat when you were talking about feeling like you really loved being a part of, the game of baseball, but not the culture. And I can relate to that in regards to, that's a big part of why I haven't chosen to pursue especially certain avenues of the entertainment industry. So I can relate with that really closely. And I never knew, I hadn't come across that you would openly say like you're kind of the anti-Barstool Sports.
Oh yeah.
And, I don't consume a lot of their content, so I guess I can't speak, super against them. But that right there, I'm like, that's why I was drawn to you and your content, Nick, because that's exactly what I want Peace, Love, and Baseball to be about.
Yeah, no, I mean, I saw that, I saw you were doing this before you invited me on, and I love the idea of it. I'm so into preserving that purity of the sport.
Yeah.
And we one of the proudest things I think that we've done, which is honestly like no work from me, was last June there was a lot of anti-LGBTQ plus talk inside of baseball, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
And we have non-straight and non-cis staffers, and we're thinking to ourselves, all right, how can we, what kind of thing can we do for Pride Month? And I'm doing this on a live stream, and someone left baseball with ALL capitalized. And I thought that was incredible. And then like that night, we released a shirt with Pride colors on all. It just says baseball. Yeah. And it has all in Pride colors, and it's all the human rights campaign and everything. It's easily our most popular shirt, all of that. And that's the kind of stuff that's like, I don't know, that gives me the most joy of this. We have a community of about 1,500 people in our Discord. It's all people who support the site. So we have a gated community in this way.
Mm-hmm.
We only had to ban 2 people in 7 years.
Nice.
And that's the kind of, that to me is like why this works and why it, I don't know, we need more of that.
Well, it speaks to how you're really like putting out the right culture. The fact that, you haven't had a problem with welcoming people in and people staying and being a part of.
It goes both ways, right? The community, like, I didn't know I could be that. I didn't know like that was going to be all right. And I think so many people want to, but they just don't know that, they want to fit in. That's why a lot of this stuff permeates, right? And continues, because everyone just wants to be a part of a community. They won't stand up for something, because being a part of a community is the most, I don't know, innate human emotion. You don't want to be alone. So I don't blame a lot of people for acting in a certain way or not stepping up and everything. I get it. It takes a lot to do that. And I didn't at first. I thought I had to be something different. And huge props to the fantasy baseball community, honestly. Like Enosaurus was like, yeah, we don't need to do that. We don't need to be like that. I'm like, what? Oh my God, really? Like, we cannot? And then other staffers weren't that way. And then the community embraced when I started to go in that direction. And I just feel so lucky that like I get to be a part of this community and have these people around us. So yeah, that's our number one consumer. Let's go with that. Those who don't necessarily feel welcome, or they don't want to have to be involved in sports betting and saying my team is the best and yours is terrible and all that kind of stuff. So
there just doesn't have to be the negativity around it. I think there are more people looking for things like that. I mean, I certainly am. And those are the kind of people that I want to interact with. And I think it's interesting that you bring this angle of it up. It wasn't necessarily a conversation that I thought we were going to have, but I'm loving that we're having it.
Come on.
Yeah. Well, and during all that time last year, I remember I said something specifically, and I was like nervous to release the episode saying that like, this is for everyone. And, I support this. I support the inclusion of all of these things. And if you don't, like, this is probably not for you. And it's weird because I don't want to be exclusive in any way. And you don't want to like join in the negative side of the conversation. So that's, I think, where the balance is at of like, do I acknowledge it? Do I not? And what I ultimately ended up coming around to was like, I'm covering everything that's like in the headlines of baseball right now. And this is one of the big things that keeps coming up. So at some point, you do feel like I can't choose to ignore it. And it's just, even when, I had an interview of the director and the man who the story was about of the movie The Hill, which was about Ricky Hill. And it's very centered on his faith and his religion. And that was the first time that I really even talked about religion on the podcast. And I was like super worried about it being anyone feeling excluded or like it wasn't for them. But what I've come back to over and over again with that kind of stuff is your intention always comes through, and the intention is to
that's what's important. And I think it's topics can be very difficult to cover. Like there's certain ones that's just like you do not want to come across a certain way. You don't want to exclude all of that. Obviously, there's a whole paradox of tolerance. To be tolerant, you have to be intolerant of intolerance. Mm-hmm. But it's always important, I think, to assume the best. And I find that a lot of conversations of questionable topics don't go well if there's someone that doesn't assume good intent, and that's where it all starts. And as long as there's respect inside of a conversation, and it's upfront saying, look, like, I'm not going to assume malintent from this person. I'm trying to be as positive intent as possible. And if I'm saying something that is going in that direction, I hope that you clarify it. And then you believe me when I try to express that I don't feel that. And that's really where it all starts. So you should be able to have these conversations, but also, I mean, I'm not someone that says, look, religion is bad. It is not. Religion, I mean, I'm not a religious person. However, I understand there's so many benefits of religion. The problem that often happens is when those religious beliefs then impact others in a way that is negative, and it's not, it is essentially against a lot of the cores of said religions.
Right.
So those conversations are great, I think, about, for example, I've openly said that I don't like Jeffrey Springs and I don't like Jason Adams because they refuse to wear the rainbow badge. And they use an excuse of, it's against my faith. And that's not necessarily true.
Right.
And it's they're choosing to use that as as a tool for them to essentially spread hate in this way. Mm-hmm. And because they don't agree with their choices, that's fine. But it's also, I mean, it's not affecting them at all. And they're treating them not like other humans, essentially.
Yeah.
And that really bothers me, because there are a lot of people who have faith who don't feel that way. It's not a law. It's not a requirement. And that's the conversation I want to have. And if people, I'll always say this, if people feel differently, they feel like, Nick, you're missing this major point. Great. Let's have a conversation about it. I don't feel that anyone is innately bad for having those thoughts. I think they're bad if they don't ever challenge those thoughts and innately just use them. And don't, aren't able to have a conversation with them. So it can be hard to bring up those topics, trust me. And thing is, you're going to get, and you probably already have so many negative thoughts. You probably get more negative thoughts than I do. I can't imagine. Like, I'm a lucky guy. I recognize being a tall white man in this space is just super easy. Okay. So I understand completely your hesitancy to bring up certain topics too, because you don't want to get any of that, which I'm sure you've
it's just, I have no desire to be polarizing. I know that that's what gets attention on the internet, but that is not my intention.
Right. Yeah, you're trying to spread peace, love, and baseball, right?
Exactly. Yes.
So, yeah, it can be hard, but also, look, I'm so much happier that I get to embrace this community instead of being something else I don't want to be, right?
Right. I mean, that's why we go and create. That's why we create our own things, right?
Yes.
Is to be able to be truest to who we are. So
lean into that. Don't lean into whatever the people will do, whatever. Just be genuine.
Yeah.
Be what you want to be. And that's my biggest suggestion.
I couldn't have said it better. Well, I want to ask you about, you said something that was really intriguing to me about the things, kind of information that you lay out, and I've consumed a number of your podcast and your list and
Oh
stuff, but
man.
the thing that I wish I kind of understood more and would like to further educate myself on,
Sure.
particularly when watching baseball, is pitchers are my favorite color analyst to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And I love when they can kind of explain something in a way that is more digestible for me, who has not the slightest clue of, I never played the game of baseball. I
Mm-hmm.
just have always enjoyed watching it.
Sure.
And so, but I'm a personal trainer. I'm a total nerd about movement and all, and
Oh,
muscles and
nice.
all of that stuff. So I
Yeah.
do have like that understanding of it. But I guess, what kind of content of yours should I consume if I wanted to understand even more about what the commentators are talking about when they refer to, the mechanics of
Yeah.
pitching?
Sure. Oh
Does that
man.
make sense? I'm not sure I
No, it
asked
does.
that
It can
very
be very
well.
confusing. Like the art of pitching is a super hard thing, right? Well, I'm first going to tell you right now. There's a lot. It's a lot simpler than you might think.
Okay.
There's a finite amount of information. It's really not. There aren't that many possibilities and different ways of doing it. It is really fun though. I describe baseball as being so special because every single pitcher is trying to throw this ball into an imaginary box, and yet every single pitcher has a different way of doing that.
Yeah, they look so wildly different.
And they have different ways of doing it from different pitches at different speeds. And this guy's good at this thing, and this guy's good at that thing, and they're all different. Oh, it's so cool. And then you see a new one show up and then goes, whoa, he does this thing. Like, wow, that's awesome. Can you do that again? Maybe. I don't know. It's great. So I would say go to my YouTube channel. What I do is in season, I often do breakdowns of pitchers and watch their innings live with my stream. That's at playback.tv/pitcher list. There you go. I do that 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. every weekday morning. And yeah, we watch games and I just tell you what's going on, what he's trying to do. And I often break
Cool.
down moments saying, okay, this kind of pitch he's trying to throw here. He's trying to do that. I would probably start at my presentation at PitchCon in 2020. If you don't know what PitchCon is, in 2020, we were all hurting. It was a terrible year. And I was terrified that I wouldn't be able to, I was trying to figure out how to pay the staff essentially, right?
Yeah.
So I came up with doing this conference called PitchCon. That was every analyst I knew just doing panels. And half of it was to help support pitchers and half of it was to Feeding America. And since then, we've made it into raising $10,000 for ALS alone, and we don't take anything anymore.
Wow.
And this year, we actually raised $15,000. And we did it over 5 days. So we had, I think, 55 hours, which was bonkers. And these are all on our YouTube channel from all previous years. So the first year I let it off with, of course, because I make all the dad jokes. My panel was called A Pitch Conversation. And it was just me breaking down what every pitch type is and what you are trying to do with it and what the speed is and how you can recognize it.
Yeah.
And that's really the first thing. So that's it's an hour-long one. You can put on 2 times speed, whatever, but it'll tell you like, hey, 4-seamers, they are generally trying to go here and sinkers are trying to go here, and then how to identify them. And generally like pitchers have like 3 or 4 of them. That's it.
Right.
So once you kind of grasp what they're trying to do, you can watch it. You can watch the game a little bit better, being like, oh, cool, he's trying to do the thing or not.
Right. Well, because I kind of feel like embarrassed admitting this for how much baseball I've watched over the course of the last 20 plus years of my life. But I'm so interested to go and look at it from that perspective, because the one thing that I've just never been able to put together for myself is like, how did they know that was a sinker? Like, I can't look at it and be like, that's what that was. The breaking ball is like the one that I feel like I can recognize, but otherwise I really don't know.
The number one trick is velocity. There's 3 bands, really. It's like the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, right? And 90s are always better, of course, now. Best music than the 80s. All music in the 80s, not for me. Since no. Get out of here.
I love both, but I won't
fight. The production in like metal was so garagey, and no, it was so much better sounding in the 90s. So, so velocity bands traditionally, like four seamers and sinkers, are both 95. And the difference between a sinker and a four seamer, it can be very hard to tell.
Okay.
You just happen to know the guy. And sometimes you can see like sinkers you want to throw inside if it's the same handedness, because like this is what I used to do in college. A sinker is a two seamer. They decided to just combine the two. I think innately they aren't, but it's just nice to combine them. Sinkers generally have more vertical drop, and two seamers have more horizontal movement. But what you do with a sinker is you throw it the same handedness where it starts on the inside edge and then it goes off the plate. And it's really hard as a hitter to not swing at that when this thing goes into the handle of the bat, and then it's a foul ball or it's a grounder to third. And there are some pitchers that can just live like that. And it's hilarious. Like, a good example, I don't know, is, I mean, Zach Wheeler does that a ton now. It's kind of wild. But like the guys on the Pirates are just, they do this all the time. So now like Martin Perez and Marco Gonzalez, and on your Cardinals, they would do it a ton. Wainwright did that a ton.
Yes.
And they used to do that. Like that was the Cardinals' way for ages. But that's like the biggest differentiation. And then if you see it upstairs, it's always going to be a four seamer.
Okay.
But velocity band is your favorite gift. Then it's like in the 80s, then it's like a changeup or slider. And then if it's in the 70s, that's a curveball. And there you go.
Okay, cool. So that's a really good place to start.
Yep.
Ooh, I am going to be annoying the hell out of my husband by mid-June. Just telling like, look at that four-seam fastball.
Look, and this is the thing too. By all means, like in our Discord, people ask this stuff all the time. Everybody has this question at some point in their life, right? Like I didn't know. Like just because I know now doesn't mean I always knew. So ask the question. That's the only way you're going to learn it. And yeah, we are so receptive to people asking these kind of questions. We love it. So if you ever get lost with this stuff, just find us in our Discord.
Do you, when you consume baseball and you're listening to the commentators, do you find that you get more value out of listening to pitchers analyze the game?
Oh, I think they're, I agree with them more. I'll say that. Like, I've gotten to the point, I don't know if it's a good or bad thing. I think it's a bad thing. I disagree a ton with certain things of just like certain approaches and stuff. And I think that's the most fun part of the game. So, there are a lot of mentalities and schools of thought when it comes to it. And by far the most fun is grasping what the pitcher's trying to do, what they are good at, and then what the hitter wants and what they are good at.
Yeah.
And I think the secret of baseball, actually, this is one that, believe it or not, I have a secret document that I've sent to a couple clubs and whatnot, being like, hey, if you want to know, this is like the secrets of pitch sequencing, which is completely lost art. And it's like my snake oil document because pitch sequencing is such a weird, like, whatever. But you can watch a game and they telegraph. That is, hitters will often tell you what they are looking for and how they're swinging and reacting to a pitch.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's wild. It's like, it's the most fun part of the game for me is actually watching a pitcher who can actually, execute anything. There's some guys that just go up there and they just chuck it, and it's the most boring thing in the world to me because it's just random. I can't actually like get in there game planning with them.
Yeah.
They don't know what's going to go on, so I can't do anything. But the ones that can do things, like Zach Eflin these days, he's really fun. And you say, okay, cool. You just threw a sinker inside, and how did he swing it? Was he aggressive on it? If he was, that means he's trying to be timed for a fastball, which means you probably want to go for a secondary pitch, which is a secondary pitch that you think would work against this guy. Well, he's generally better against changeups, or he's better against sliders. So you don't throw that one, you throw the other one. Cool, you're going to throw that one. Oh, I just missed. How did he react to it? Was he going to swing at it if it was closer? Was he not? And that's pretty much what's going through my head the entire time. And it's so fun. What happens, you get it, right? It's like, oh, okay, cool. And the thing about baseball is that you have this innate tension built in. It's not like bam, 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 bam. Yeah. It's pitch,
strategy.
Think. Pitch again. And it's like, oh, it's so beautiful. And it's kind of, the pitch clock has ruined it a little bit for the playoffs, but that's another story. I think they should just get rid of the pitch clock for the playoffs. And honestly, everyone will be happy They get more money for advertising, right? Like longer
Great
games in
point.
the plants are a good thing, right?
Yeah, I don't see how it could hurt,
I don't
but,
know.
you know,
That
we're not
drives
in
me up the wall.
charge.
But anyway, long story short, sometimes I hear pitchers that are in the old school thought of like kind of how to throw strikes and how to execute with fastballs and are less on the train of secondaries are clearly better than fastballs. And don't always, don't always read as a bat is going on a ton. But guys like Earl Hershiser are great. David Cohn is my idol, has always been that way. And I'm always right there with him. He's one of my favorites by far. Darling's very good too.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some others that I've seen on broadcast where I'm just like, oh gosh, come on. Oh, no.
As you were talking that through, though, I was thinking like, yes, these are the moments that of why I like listening to pitchers who
Mm,
are, you know, turned analysts, is when they get inside the head and they say like, this is probably what he's going to do next. And you
yeah.
don't necessarily get that same perspective from the hitter's side of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, sometimes you do of like actually one of the smartest things. I know we all like to hate on John Smoltz. Trust me, I understand it. I really do. He has a lot of insight, and there are times it comes out, and I go absolutely right. And there's one that has always stuck with me. I have to give him credit for. It's 2016. You might remember this. This guy named Rajah Davis in the World Series hit this game tying home run off of Aroldis Chapman. And before it happened, Smoltz is saying, hey, Aroldis Chapman's throwing really hard and he might leak one inside. If that's happening, if I'm Rajah Davis, I'm going to focus my bat on wrapping around. So if you think about hitting, you can, where your hands, actually where your elbow is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Am I extending out in my swing? Am I keeping it tucked in? Derek Jeter is like the king of keeping his hands in. That means his elbow is tucked in, right? And if you have a lefty and you're a righty, or essentially opposite handedness, that ball is actually at a angle coming in. It's not straight, right? It's usually at some sort of angle, especially if it's going inside corner and they're releasing from like the first base side. So if you're trying to hit this, instead of trying to meet it straight forward, if you meet it kind of where you're almost parallel with the bat along the path of the ball coming in, you can wrap around it instead of getting jammed on the handle. And if you think about that a little and cheat out a little, you can do what Rajah Davis did. That's exactly what he did. And he was able to hit that home run. It's Rajah Davis. He shouldn't, but because he changed the mentality in that moment that Smoltz predicted he would, he did it. And I thought that was so interesting and great. And he doesn't get enough credit for that one because that was brilliant.
Well, I'm sure it's harder than it looks, right? Not just having all of that insight, but being able to articulate it in the moment.
Yeah, it was great. It was so good. And then he hates baseball. So,
well, we don't need to talk about that. We'll just give him credit where But let me ask you about this, because this is something that I am just dipping my toe in the water on. I, for many years, have been kind of intimidated by it, but I'm giving fantasy baseball a go for the first time this year. And I have been listening to your podcast about it because this is something that you cover and give advice on quite extensively, which is great. But I remember this was probably like 15 or more years ago when I think I was either still in high school or just in college, and my older male cousins would not let me play in their fantasy baseball league. So now that I have multiple people asking me to join their leagues, I just feel like this is a moment for me.
Yeah.
And I don't want to totally make a fool of myself. So I'm sure I'm not the only one out there that's like just getting started or really, there's so much content out there to consume.
Yeah.
Can you give us just like 2 or 3 big bullet point tips
I got you.
for beginners in fantasy baseball?
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, we put together a guide, I think a couple years ago, Fantasy 101. So definitely just Google Fantasy 101 pitcher lists, and I heavily recommend that just to understand all the little nits, little pieces of like how the game works and little strategies that you should employ and what matters and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff. It's a huge thing. So I heavily recommend that. Also ask questions a ton. I know I'll get to the actual bullet points, but I know how intimidating it can be. And also mention it is so great to just learn baseball. It's, you know, the players all of a sudden. You understand that you will be rooting for this random guy on the Twins now. And it's the best feeling. And I certainly am guilty of this where, you know, I've been getting excited about like this guy, Albert Suarez or something on the Orioles, or Ryan Nelson. But for actual like 12-team normal fantasy leagues, you shouldn't care. That's just me getting excited because there's someone that should not be fantasy relevant in any way.
Yeah.
All of a sudden looking like something maybe. And that's just so exciting. Like the no-name story of baseball is tried and true.
My favorite.
And I will always, always be the hype man for those people to get their moment in the limelight. But when it comes to fantasy baseball, I'll put it this way, is especially for 12-teamers, the name of the game is to take chances and make mistakes and constantly be moving with it.
Okay.
So the way that I structure my teams, so for on the pitching side, you go for like 4 guys who are going to be throughout the entire year pitching, but at a level that is far better than just neutral. There are like a lot of pitchers who are going to go like 5-6 innings constantly, but they're just not good enough to like push the needle. And I call those a Toby, because he gets his work done, but you're not happy that he's there, like in the office. Okay. So that's one of the older terms that we have on the site. And you can always find those on the waiver wire. So it's fine. There will be times you get really excited about a guy one night, like, oh man, he had 8 strikeouts. Is he all of a sudden really good? And it can be really hard to discern if that guy is good. I do an article every single night in the year called the SB Roundup that goes over every single starting pitcher and tells you what to think about them. And it's the only reason why I'm able to do what I do, because that is my knowledge base. That's how I do everything that I do, is because of that one article, which is just resetting the foundation or just updating it every night. So then all the other articles I do is just based on me doing that article.
Yeah.
So that's really the main thing, is you get a foundation that you like of starters, and then you tweak it as it goes on with other guys.
Okay.
When it comes to hitters, it's generally just safer to go with tried and true players who have consistently done well over the years. We have learned in the fantasy baseball world that skills are more important than track record. And what that means is you will see a guy hitting, 20 home runs or something like that. But now we have really good data that will tell you, okay, that is not consistent, or it is consistent. And you don't really, I'm not trying to intimidate you with all the metrics and to learn all those things, that will come with time. But it's important to just kind of ask questions like, all right, this guy is doing well. What is the process that I should look into to determine those skill sets, as opposed to just the shallow level? Oh, cool, he has 3 home runs. He's hitting 320 the last week or something like that, right? There is a lot to consume there, and I don't want to overwhelm. And I'm just going to say, just look at this thing or that thing. There is so much. So just follow Scott Chu. We have an article called Batter's Box every day that goes over the best hitters of the day. We also have reliever ranks, which goes over all the relief appearances. So there you go. There are your 3 daily articles to consume. And
that's it. That's all 3 bullet points that I need.
That's it. That's all you need. Seriously. I made this site to be like the easy fantasy baseball player. Yeah. Like we want to be like the kids that, you want to hang out with, but also happen to know the thing. Right?
Yeah.
That's
like, you can sit with us is kind of the vibe.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, seriously, like if there's one honest tip, it's just ask the Discord constantly.
Okay.
I know I keep like plugging this thing, but really, like, it's the best community to help with it, and everybody's in this situation. Or just join me on stream and say like, hey Nick, I'm thinking about this guy or that guy. I'm like, oh yeah, it's that guy. I'll explain why.
Well,
great, thanks.
It sounds like, I mean, we've all had this experience on Twitter where you put out whether it's something you think or a question, and then you just get absolutely attacked from all angles because you're not a real fan, because you don't understand this, or
so
you're
dumb. That is not us in the slightest. We are so like excited that you are here, and people are like, oh cool, you like this thing too, awesome, come on in, we'll show you everything. Now that's really the spirit of it. But I should mention this: fantasy baseball, the winners and losers every year are not actually about the skills of being a prognosticator. Okay.
Okay.
It's actually about the time you spend. If you spend time actually assessing and determining what is good and making the small moves, that is actually how you win at fantasy baseball. Fantasy football is way different because it's just like one game a week, and that's it. Baseball, it's about understanding that some teams are going to have 7 games in a week, others are going to have 5 in a week. That means that if you're going to start the one that has 5 games, they need to be like 30% better than the people who go 7 games, right? And that's usually not the case. So oftentimes it's about just volume. The team that has the most plate appearances every year generally has the most home runs, the most RBI, and the most runs. If that's just how it is. It makes complete sense, but a lot of people don't take advantage of that. A lot of people don't ensure that they have a full lineup every day. And that's a huge, huge deal. So just paying attention and monitoring your lineup and asking yourself, is this the best team I can put out there each day, is already way ahead of the pack.
Oh, I'm feeling better about this already because it sounds like what you're saying to me is the common sense approach, which is not always the easiest approach, but because you have to be a certain level of attentive to it. But I can do that.
Yeah, well, if you can do that, then you're so far ahead.
All right. Well, we're in the slow draft process right now, and I'm
Which one are you in?
Too much. I'm on it's a St. Louis Cardinals. Shout out to the Talking About Birds podcast, friends of the show, and they invited me to join their fantasy baseball this year, and so I'm super excited to give it a go. And we're doing we started the draft like a week ago, and it goes up until just a couple days before the first game of the season, so there's plenty of time. And but I think because there's all this time, I'm like, who am I going to pick next? And how much does it matter? And so fun, it sounds like the real strategy comes in. Like you can pick players, you can balance the roster. That's a little more basic, but the real strategy comes in when you get into the games.
In season. So there's a famous adage, which is you can't win a draft, but you can lose one.
Ooh.
So you're not going to win your league just based on your draft.
Yeah.
I actually say this a lot. This is my favorite thing because it needs to be said a ton in our league, which is a lot more of a deeper league. And there's a lot of obsession over projections, which I understand why. Like if you're able to predict as a whole, like the projection being, okay, cool, this guy's going to hit 26 home runs, they're going to have this average and all that kind of stuff, then you're going to be ahead, right? But the problem is that you finish your draft and then you see this Fantasy Pros thing of like, well, this is where your team ranks. That is not your team. Like your team isn't going to be exactly the same for 6 months, and neither is everyone else's. And that's called the best ball league, right? Where you draft your team and you don't make any moves on the wire.
Yeah.
Not the case. And a lot of people draft their team expecting like, oh, well, cool. And like the second last round, I'm going to get this guy who's okay, but like it's still guaranteed better than the others. You're not going to actually have that guy. You don't want mediocrity at the end. You don't want just good enough. You want someone that could be really amazing or absolutely terrible. And then you move on from them, right? If they don't work out. So you're not drafting a best ball league, right? This is not a best ball team.
Yeah.
Have that mentality and take chances, make mistakes, do the Miss Frizzle method, as I call it. Get messy. Like go for it in the second half of your draft because you're going to replace half of those guys by like June 1st.
Okay.
So have fun.
Oh, that's perfect timing for me to hear that. All right. The last thing I got to ask you about here is we do have a lot of Cardinals fans listeners because that is, where my fandom lies.
Sure. I can see all the, what is that? You have a pillow there that says Magic? Is that?
No, this is my husband's last name. Well, I guess.
That's awesome.
Yeah. There's one that has the one that has my last name on it too.
Why 17 and 10?
10/17 is our anniversary.
Oh, well, that's wonderful.
So cute. Yeah. My sister-in-law got them for us. Anyway, yeah. So I'm overall a very positive baseball fan, as you are, and I love that about it. It shows in all of your content and the way that you've obviously been in this entire podcast. So I am feeling bad about the fact that I feel negatively still
about the Cardinals,
specifically the starting rotation.
Yeah, no, you should.
Okay, great. So at least my feelings are warranted. Yeah, I just don't feel like
No, it was hilarious this offseason. It was so funny. We're like, okay, cool. Actually, I think I listened to your podcast. Like, maybe we'll get Jordan Montgomery, maybe we'll get Blake Snell or something like that. And I just remember, like, what did you guys do? Oh, right, you got Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson.
Just like we
It
dreamt
was, and
about.
was
Yeah.
even a third get that I'm forgetting? No, it's Steven Matz is in there. Oh yeah, Sonny
Yes,
Gray, of
we
course.
got Sonny
Sonny
Gray.
Gray is a fantastic signing.
Absolutely. But we got
Wonderful,
Sonny
and he
Gray
should be okay for opening
after
day.
yes.
Yeah.
But we got Sonny Gray
Yeah.
after we signed Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson. So the semantics around that were not great.
No, not fun.
Yeah, I guess there's obviously a lot we could get into for it, but my biggest question is, like, do they even have a chance at being better than last year as a pitching staff? Because in my mind, like,
Yes.
yes, but if they're lucky, like, that's kind of what I feel like.
Should they is the question. I mean, okay, I'm trying to even think, like, what was it? Last year was just bad. There was no positivity in that staff, right? Was there anything that it
Well,
was Wainwright was still there for whatever reason, and
yeah, I mean, I
and
go back to the
Michaelis
beginning of the
and
season, and I'll tell you where I guess my headspace is at, is I did this episode with the Brewers babes right before the beginning of the season, and we did like a head-to-head. We put
oh
the starting
man,
pitching
that's not
staffs,
even.
we put the infielders head-to-head, and I was not feeling that bad about Adam Wainwright, Miles Michaelis, Jack Flaherty, Jordan Montgomery, and Steven Matz.
Yeah.
And, and then we have the Matthew Liberators, the Zach Wheelers. We no longer have Jake Woodford, but he was another one who filled in from time to time.
I call him the Amish Mustang, by the way. Woodford.
So I guess I just don't feel like it's really that different. Obviously it is different, but like is the outcome, the
Sure.
results going to be different because
well, okay, so it's better. So I'll go like this. Jack Flaherty was incredibly disappointing.
yes.
Jordan Montgomery is the most Toby of Toby, in my view. Maybe slightly a Holly. That is a guy who has over a 20% strikeout rate as a Toby. So that's a Holly, a better version, right? But yeah, that was a great trade that you guys, I mean, I don't know what you guys got back, but it doesn't matter. Like, good that you traded.
It had to be done.
Yeah. Steven Matz is interesting. He was actually throwing 97 apparently today, which is like the second hardest sinker he's ever thrown in his career. But he also only returned like one whiff today, so I don't know. If he's healthy, he should be fine.
Yeah, we were calling him Thigh Mats for like 2 weeks in the middle of
the season. Is that right? He has like massive thighs?
No, Cy, like Cy Young, but Thigh Mats.
Thigh Mats. I was like, wow, okay.
No, not him. That's Spencer Strider. You can save that for him, or like anyone on the Yankees, but not pretty much. Not our Steven Matz.
Conley. I know you're thinking about Tommy Kahnle.
Yep. Just by the middle of the season, did we imagine that Steven Matz would be the best pitcher on our team? Yeah. Absolutely not. And I guess last year I didn't have, the negative outlook going in. And this year I do. And I'm not sure if it's because of the outcome of last year, or I think it's really because I thought this was going to be it. I thought this was what it was going to take to make the Cardinals kind of change their whole approach.
Yeah.
And I get that they had to secure starting pitchers and innings. Like, I get it.
Well, that's the Cardinals' way. That's the thing. Okay, so the game of baseball is moving in this direction. It's moving the way of the Tampa Bay Rays. And what I mean by that is it's about max efforts, injury-prone pitchers who are not bred to go 6-7 innings. And what's really interesting and what I think is going to happen is you're going to have all these teams doing that until you get to a point that all the talent pool is doing that. And it's at 96, 97. So then finally we're going to be able to breed again these 6-7 inning guys, because those are the only ones that stand out.
Yeah.
And that might take like 15 years or something like that.
Right.
But I'm excited for it.
That's
now the Cardinals are not doing this. The Cardinals are very much in like the Dave Duncan mentality of still sinkers and inducing contact. Look at Dakota Hudson, that is him. Miles Michaelis is this vein. It's so funny that you guys got Kyle Gibson. I'm like, of course you did.
Yeah.
Now there's Lance Lynn, who used to be there, but that's when he was a sinker guy, and now he's not. And this 4-seamer is getting worse, and I don't like that. Sonny Gray is really interesting because he goes against the mold, being a really heavy breaking ball guy, and that's not the Cardinals' thing. but it's not also dominating four seamer. It is a four seamer that acts like a cutter. And what I mean by that is it doesn't stay up. It drops a little, it dips. And that generally means that it gets good contact inside for him. So that does play into generally the defense focus of the Cardinals. And what do you know? You have Arenado and Goldschmidt. So yeah. And no more Paul DeJong. So that's good too. So that's always going to be there. And it does make sense for the Cardinals to play into those strengths, I guess. But the thing is, they're never going to be like the big payroll people. They're never going to pay out for that. And that's frustrating. I do have good news-ish. Tin Kens looks great.
Yeah.
Tekoa Roby, maybe
2 years from now.
I don't know. But Tin Kens is the one that is pretty cool. And I wouldn't be surprised if, like, by the end of this year, if it gets really bad that you see him, I would expect it to be next year. Right. But I do have a very quick a story of Alex Reyes. And remember him? Yeah, I wanted to like him, and I was so excited, and then no. And actually, I remember in 2019, this is a very like emotional moment for me. It was no, it won't be like that kind of thing. But just a big moment for me was getting invited to the Baseball HQ conference, First Pitch Arizona. Which honestly, go to it. You're gonna have such a good time. You'll meet everyone inside the industry. We're all wonderful people. Trust me, and it's the greatest celebration of the sport. And if you're getting into it, that's where you should go. Okay, and it was my first year doing it. I thought nobody knew who I was. I was like so nervous and everything. And there was a panel going, and they said, "So Alex Reyes, this is entering 2020. So hey, so is he going to start? Like, what's going on? Like, it's Alex Reyes. We're interested." And I gave I'm in the crowd, and I just gave this eye roll, being like, "Oh." I didn't make a noise, but I was like, "Not Alex Reyes. Like, come on, guys, this isn't going to work. We know this." And one of the analysts who has been like a legend for years said, "Well, based on just how Nick Pollack rolled his eyes, I'm not in on Alex Reyes." And I was like, "What? Why do you know me? Like, no, stop." And so Alex Reyes to me is such a dear place in my heart because of this.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But he's also like the last real exciting Cardinals starter. I guess maybe like Jack Flaherty, but
yes, what Jack
Alex
Flaherty
Reyes was that supposed to be like the guy.
Yes.
And hopefully it's Tin Kens for you.
Well, and that's why it's to me, I guess I understand why they continue not to go that route, because when they have, and the people that they kind of have tried to take those chances on, it hasn't worked out, and they are more injury prone. I totally get it. I am very interested in, and I will consume everything that I'm sure you've put out there about how just pitching is developing in the sport from being more focused. This is what I was going to ask you about earlier when I lost my train of thought of the velocity being just the primary thing that even in scouting that is being thought out, as opposed to, the Adam Wainwright style of pitching that dictated our game and the best pitchers in our game for so long. Yeah, me too. And I don't even know about it, or understand it on the level at which you do. But it seems like maybe the Cardinals are just trying to hold out for that to come back around. But like you said, maybe 15 years from now, and I'm hoping that we're not waiting that long for another title.
There's a phrase I've been saying this offseason, which is command is the market inefficiency, because everyone's so focused on stuff. And stuff is just about movement and speed, really. And command is being able to locate. And those that can actually locate, it's harder to discern if guys are good at it, because it's a lot of noise. You execute one perfectly and then you don't on the next one. And how consistent is it? However, I do believe that at the extremes, like in the top 10 percentile or so, it is consistent. And I think there are ways for us to actually utilize that effectively and say, like, no, this guy's a command guy. I think generally Sonny Gray's a pretty good command guy. And I think there is more value in finding those inning eaters that can actually still produce at a 4 ERA or lower. There is value in that for major league clubs, and the Cardinals we're probably going to do that because we have this good defense behind us and we don't need to pay a ton. And the NL Central is not super competitive every year, so we can get away with this. And that's just kind of how it is at the moment. I hate it. And you can have guys that do both. It's possible. But yeah, I hope for the best. I mean, you have Matthew Liberatore and Zach Thompson as your backups right now. Drew Rom is hilarious, by the way, to me. I don't understand how anyone can choose say, cool, I'm going to throw a 4-seamer and slider here and then a 2-seamer all the way down here, lower arm angle, as if like we won't recognize this. It blew my mind when I watched the video. I was like, wait, he does this? Like, why? Why would you do this? But then like Zach Thompson and Matthew Liberatore. Liberatore's throwing harder right now at 95, which is good. It's not the 93, 94. The slider, I hope, is looking better. Honestly, last game I saw of him, his command was everything was just down the middle. And like, you shouldn't do that. While Zach Thompson is a worse Kershaw. And like, it's a 4-seamer. Well, it's a fastball slider curve combo that isn't as good. Yeah. But hopefully he can figure that out from the left side. Otherwise, like, what else? I'm trying to think of like the other options for the Cardinals right now. Oh yeah, there's Sem. Sem's fine. It's okay. Yeah. I miss Jake Woodford. I don't, but you know, that was just so funny to me.
Yeah, I kind of do too, in a weird way, but that's probably just based on vibes more than pitching as you would. But Nick, tell us where we can find you on social media and what is the easiest way to consume all the good stuff that you're putting out.
Oh man. Yeah, just I don't know. What you guys should be doing is you should be rating and reviewing this podcast. If you are listening to this, like, why aren't you doing that? It helps so much, massively, to all these shows to do that. And Kelsey obviously puts so much time and effort into this. So the very least you could do, especially if you're here now, is leave a rating review. So go and do that.
Thank you. But where can we find you?
Just Pitcher List. Just put that in. And that's me. I'm that guy.
I'm going to link it all in the show notes. So people don't even need to hear it. But for the audio driven people, I will put it all in the show notes because, I mean, I could talk your ear off for another hour, probably 12.
Super
but thank
easy.
you so much for hanging out and for giving us just a little pebble of insight into all that you are putting out there. I am looking forward to following you for not just fantasy baseball tips, but, getting better with my pitch recognition and so much more. And just the good vibes, the peace, love, and baseball. Right. So thank you.
Good luck this year. I'm excited for you. Playing fantasy baseball is so much fun. There are so many things to do inside of it, and it's a journey, and you're going to enjoy it. So best of luck. You got this.
Thank you. And I will, maybe we can catch up mid-season and check in.
Oh, absolutely.
How your fantasy tips have worked out for me so far.
That sounds great.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick.